Ladies and gentlemen, it is a moment of great joy for me being here with Venerable Jampa Lungtog. Thank you for accepting the invitation for the conference with the theme Education and Knowledge between East and West. So let me begin by saying that this great event was possible due to the effort of Herald Publishing House, the Center Seeds for Happiness, and Compassionate Wisdom Association. It is Rabten Compassionate Wisdom Association. So, Venerable Jampa, I know that you have met a person who changed your life, and it is Venerable Gesche Rabten. If you want to share with us this meeting and maybe what was happening when you was 20 years old, you was graduating technical faculty, electronics, if yes. But you don't, you choose another way, and this is beautiful.
Actually, I did not choose another way.
Oh.
My only reason for studying electronics was to finally understand how radios work. This I had never learned in schools before, so I thought now I really must understand that. And along with my interest for natural sciences, I was always very interested in life by itself, in mind, in the reasons for death, and never got the answers I was really looking for. Religion always appeared as something that had many precious thoughts, but you had to believe, but you were not allowed to analyze. Science appeared as a field where you were requested to analyze, you did not have to believe. But it didn't bring all the answers. Science also not. So then, during my studies in Zurich, I had a friend who knew of Gesche Rabten Rinpotsche, and she told me, this is the only Tibetan master that is capable of teaching Westerners the meaning of Buddha's words so that even we can understand it. Of course, I wanted to meet him. And then we listened to his teachings. I was very surprised to hear explanations on a field that we usually consider religion, with the request to analyze, with the request not to believe. So this suited me perfectly. Of course, I did not accept everything that was said from the beginning, but it always seemed valuable to continue analyzing and to ask again, and whatever answer was given following my questions was a short, well formulated answer that fitted perfectly to what had been said before, and always demanding analysis from my side, so this suited me perfectly. And that is the reason why I continued to study under this master after the obtaining of the degree, learned Tibetan language, and wanted to have access to the Buddhist scriptures directly through the guidance of this great master. And it's actually a continuation of this surge I had from my youth on.
No, it's remarkable. Hearing you, I was thinking about the Western style of doubting. Since Descartes, we have to doubt about anything, and it is a critical voice inside us who tell, oh, what is that? It has no reality. What? So I think, and I was thinking about your meeting with Venerable Gesche Rabten, and it is precious, and I want to also, I need to hear always that we have to experience things and to doubt. Yes, so this is an experiential field that you are dealing with, the Buddhist lifestyle?
This is correct. Buddha himself admonished his disciples to analyze his words. Mm-hmm. He said, like somebody who buys gold, who will cut, rub and burn the gold in order to verify its purity, mm-hmm. so should you analyze my teachings. So when we analyze Buddha's words, then we have the full right to do so. This is called the roar of the lion. That means Buddha's teachings are given with an absolute security of corresponding perfectly to reality. So he requests his disciples to verify that point, not just to accept it. And by verifying with logic, with whatever means we have, we get a much deeper understanding. And the teachings of Buddha don't limit us even to that, because there are many subtle points that can only be understood to our full conviction by developing more sharp qualities of the mind. So Buddha teaches also how to develop these advanced qualities of the mind to still further verify whatever are the contents of his teachings.
Mm-hmm. This is very, very precious. And you are here in Romania in this weekend for a workshop, could I put it like this, with also mindfulness technique. And listening to you about searching our mind, I think mindfulness, or what I understand from mindfulness, it is an important door to ourselves. Can you tell us, please, a few words about mindfulness, or being mindful? It is, everybody knows, but yet.
It's perfectly correct that you ask for more precision. The ideas we associate with the word mindfulness may not always correspond to the meaning given in Buddha's teachings. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's just the quality of remembering an object and holding it in our mind. So the Tibetan word that we translate as mindfulness is just Jampa, which means remembering. Now, it has a vaster meaning in Tibetan language than our remembering in English. Mm-hmm. We only use it for remembering past events. So we recall a past event, mm-hmm. and we keep the content of whatever happened present in our mind for a certain length of time. Mm-hmm. It is this quality of keeping a content present in the mind which is the actual remembrance. Mm-hmm. So we use this also when we deal with everyday objects for the present moment when we have to interact with the objects. Mm-hmm. Like if we just have our mind jumping from one idea to the other, we cannot fulfill any task. Mm-hmm. We have to maintain the mind and stabilize it on the point of thought, the point of discussion, the theme that is being treated, and the factor of mind that allows us to keep the mind on that object, that is called Jampa, or mindfulness. And the same factor is used for thinking of future events. Like we frequently think about what we're going to do tomorrow, whom we are going to meet, what we're going to say. It is the same factor of mind that allows us to keep content of the next days in our mind at the present. It is imagined content, of course, but it is this capacity of holding an object in mind. Mm-hmm. Now, people that have very weak capacity in this direction are not very capable of fulfilling difficult tasks. Like a person that really is capable of fulfilling difficult work must be able, we say concentrate, but concentration is still another factor, but it goes together, concentration and remembrance, but must take the object of the activity and really keep his mind focused on that. And this is the effect of this factor that we call mindfulness. Now there are many objects one can be mindful of, and Buddha has given a number of objects that are very beneficial if we remain mindful of them. The first instructions given by Buddha are just observing movements, observing the breath, instead of letting the mind just wander aimlessly around. And by observing consciously or willing or with intentionally, then this capacity of mind of remaining on a specific subject improves. And these are what is frequently called the Satipatthana practices in Sanskrit, which is actually observation of breaths, of movements, of feelings. So there are many aspects of such observation. And then they go much further in their depths, like keeping in mind specific qualities of our existence, like the quality of impermanence. When we deal with everyday life, we know that we're going to die, but this is far off in the future. We don't have a knowledge of our life just continuously passing and going away. And we don't have a grasping of the end of life not being far away. We think it's a huge amount of time left until this comes. If we calculate a little bit, we know it's not. It's a couple of days. So many of our decisions are determined by such a wrong attitude, and to counteract that, one has to develop a mindfulness of, for example, the impermanence of one's life, which changes drastically the way one reacts in everyday situations, the decisions one takes, and so on.
It is very precious what you've said. I was thinking, in the Western society, we are stuck into a field of permanence, and we are thinking always will be like this. In the East, the main value maybe is this kind, like a river, impermanence. It's a beautiful metaphor, but still I have lots of fears. So you talk about the fear of death, which is the great teacher. And how can we discriminate in this moment that we are really going to die?
By merely thinking of death without any knowledge of what it really is, of what is going to come after, it may be very depressing and may lead to a few useful decisions, but may also lead to wrong decisions. One has to understand the effect of our present behavior beyond this life. In order to understand that in a manner that will really convince us, it is necessary to understand the process of death very precisely. In order to understand that, one needs to understand what is mind and what is body and how those two interact with each other. These points are described in utmost precision in Buddha's teachings. Receiving instructions on these points from a truly qualified master will then allow us to develop a deep conviction that there is something continuing, also knowing what is continuing. It is not any of the ideas we have now. It is not the persons sort of as we experience it now. It is a continuity of the stream of mind, very similar to what you took as analogy. This river is also a stream of water, where potentialities that we set now with our intentions are going on like seeds that will determine our future experiences. Like our present experiences are primarily determined by such imprints and seeds accumulated in the past. This knowledge or this conviction must be acquired. before intensively thinking about death. Because then one sees that there are different values in life. Now it seems like being rich, having fun is a value of life. Of course, many people, once they have experienced it to a certain extent, realize this is not what they wanted, this is not enough. But what is there else? So by understanding this continuity of existence and how our intentions and activities are the factors that determine our future experiences, then our behavior becomes the prime object of our concern. Knowing death is not so much a fear anymore, rather the misbehavior that we easily follow becomes the factor that we fear. And that we can control a little bit. We can learn how to control it. So we are not just put in a place of fear, but rather in a situation of hope and knowledge on how to shape our future far beyond this life.
We are dying with each behavior which is not right in a way, and I'm asking, what is the good behavior? What is good and wrong? This is so big question. But I know that you have something for me.
It is the essential question you ask. Mm-hmm. Today in school in Austria, where I come from, I hear that children can choose between classes on religion or classes of ethics. So what is the defining criteria in ethics for correct and incorrect behavior? And they tell me that the definitions they are given are not satisfying for them. So we have to ask, in general, what do we consider as good or bad? In general, we say something is good if it gives us happiness, if it gives the human beings happiness, if it gives beings happiness. We consider something as bad if it gives suffering. Now we know that there are external factors that have the effect to give us some pleasure or some harm. But these are not the only kind of influences that are responsible for our experiences. And the connection between our actions and our experiences is one of the most subtle one there is. It is said there are many classes of phenomena of gross nature, of subtle and very subtle nature. The gross ones we can understand fairly well. Our Western science is doing well in those. The subtle ones partly, but also already quite difficult. And the very subtle ones are only accessible once the mind has been developed to a point where it can perceive the connection between an action and the result, the long-term result that it brings for the acting person, maybe even in lives to come, not in this present life. So whatever is called good or ethically correct must be an action that has the effect of producing happiness for all those involved in the action in the long run. So this is the determining factor of Buddhist ethics. Buddha is not declaring a code of ethics, but he is merely describing these subtle connections. And so this is the way how nature works. Understand it and use it to your best knowledge to create happiness for yourself and for others. So it seems that the natural effect of any action is that its result is similar to its kind of the nature of the action itself. Like we have intentions to harm, intentions to benefit. The intention itself is the actual action. And if you have an intention to benefit, this brings happiness to those receiving the action. If you have the intention to harm, it will bring suffering. And it seems that the natural consequences work in a manner that this nature as a cause produces exactly the same kind of result. So all action that is done out of a kind heart, out of a true wish to alleviate suffering, out of a true wish to bring happiness to others, this will be considered a good action.
From a kind heart.
Yes.
So the kind heart is the source of all the ethics and all the good behavior.
This you can state like this very well.
But, and this is the critical voice inside me, there are people who are educated in very rough conditions, and their heart is poisoned and they have not a good heart. And I am wondering, how can a poisoned heart like this to become good? And what is the point when bad heart, the process of heart changing began?
As a human being in general, it is not difficult to develop a good heart, because human nature is by itself something very open to kindness and very strong tendency to kindness. Like a human being in general, when it sees others suffer, it easily tends to not ignore it, to consider the situation, or even become active and help. Even a person that has experienced very difficult situations may be disappointed, may be sad, may be full of anger. But encountering the right guide will be definitely a chance to change this completely. There have been many examples in Buddha's life. Like there was one person misguided that was full of hatred towards all beings and killed one being after the other. It was Angulimala. He killed 999 persons and was feared by the whole town. And encountering Buddha completely caused his anger to melt, to go away, and to see the great fault in his behavior. Of course, this is the best situation one can experience, but any influence suitable to the difficulty of the person and guiding the person directly or indirectly to other thoughts will change a human being quite easily. So wouldn't worry too much about the possibility. It is merely a question of the person getting into the right surroundings, which may be sometimes just experiencing of a very difficult situation for oneself, a very desperate situation, where one realizes that this hatred towards the others, this dislike towards the others is completely out of place. Many situations can occur that will change such a person. We cannot know so easily what will be the exact best method for the specific being. But there are other fully awakened beings active, and they will always make effort to bring about such transformations.
So the good heart is contagious. We need a person, a master, who have the power to love us even when we have hatred. This is because in our daily life, when our beloved one is screaming and it is so poisoned with all kinds of negative emotions, it is also contagious, and it's so hard to be loving in that moment.
We may lose our kind attitude towards others because we only see the superficial situation. If we direct our thoughts to the deeper situation any being is in, then this will become much more stable. This of course needs training, needs understanding, but it's not so difficult to understand. No being wants to die. No being wants to lose the qualities of its youthful body. And what is happening to us? From day to day we are losing the qualities of our youth. We are gaining qualities, physical qualities of old age, which we don't like. We are approaching sickness and death, which we don't like. This is actually a way of existing which is very pitiful. We never look at that. We look at it when it's very obvious. But when soon as a person seems to be somehow in an acceptable state, we forget that. So by training one's mind to this deeper reality of our existence not being anything that's truly satisfactory, that is continuously moving to decay, to loss, to separation, which none of us want. The more we are aware of that, the more the warm feelings toward the person will become stable in us. And then the screaming of one moment will not be able to shatter that at all.
What is the main value of education in your view, Venerable Jampa?
When we are born, we are not knowing anything really, except to scream. And it is only thanks to our surrounding, primarily to the parents in the first years, that we develop knowledge on how to deal with objects, how to behave. And slowly, slowly, later on, through the kindness of the teachers, we become an acceptable member of human society. And we like to be respected by others. We like to be valued by others. Now this is, in younger years, it may be physical qualities that are interesting for others, that are a reason for being accepted or respected, but in the long run it will be only the human qualities, the qualities of knowledge, of character, that are the cause for our interaction with others in an agreeable manner. Now, if we are not in the lucky position of having parents and teachers that lead us to beneficial knowledge, then we easily get into company of people with bad behaviors and harmful views, and then we will pick up those. By doing so, we will destroy our own happiness in this life and far beyond this, and become a harmful factor for many others as well. In our Western attitude, we think, okay, he has wasted his life, one day he will die and that's it. That's not it. In the view of Buddhism, existence continues, and the consequences of such negative actions and behaviors will be much, much greater still in future than whatever they may be now. On the contrary, if we are educated to gain valuable human qualities so that we can act in human society in a beneficial manner, like teachers, like doctors, like nurses, and so on, bringing with our activities relief of suffering and happiness to beings. If we have such qualities, then on the one hand this life will be happy, on the other hand we are accumulating the causes for even greater happiness in the future. So all that possibility is a result of the education made available to us. And it always has to be in a very skillful manner, because young people don't like to make effort in learning in general. If they don't learn, they have no qualities and their life is wasted. So the skillfulness of the teacher and the parents is this most important factor that paves the road to a happy life. So it is a most crucial and most essential point, the education, the development of qualities, the development of wisdom.
Yes, and It is a very personal thing. I think it is not a cognitive a matter, so a hard matter. And speaking about heart, it passed through my mind a piece of Heart Sutra, and I want to hear if I kindly ask to hear something about emptiness. All is empty. It is no beginning, no end. I try to find each day some more experiential signification for science for this emptiness. And
this is one of the most important points of Buddhist philosophy. Also a very subtle point, which will not be understood correctly by merely reading texts. The knowledge in general is something that needs to be transmitted from a living teacher to the living disciple. The spoken word, the experience of the teacher, which is transmitted in this interaction of disciple and teacher, is a main factor that creates the necessary knowledge in the disciple. This is in general the case. Now for more subtle items, subtle points, like this most subtle point, it is completely out of question to gain a proper understanding without being taught by a correct teacher. Now this point is so difficult that this is the main point where the various Buddhist lineages and traditions have differences. In most of the other points there are no differences. They are fully agreeing on their attitudes and on their understanding derived from Buddha's teachings, but that point is most difficult. And to find a qualified teacher that's really capable of transmitting that is not easy. I myself, of course, I'm not at all in a position to transmit such a point, but I was in the most exceptional position to be a disciple of Gesche Rabten Rinpoche, who was known to have experience in his meditations on this very point. So I can try to outline in a very, very simple, short manner that might help just to get a direction. Just not always to look at the wrong direction, but to look at the right direction, but certainly not the proper understanding. The question is whether our perception is correct. Correct means, does it correspond to reality? When we see a person, we have a certain impression of that person, a certain picture in us of that person. When we think about ourselves, there is a certain idea about ourselves. Now these ideas about ourselves and others, do they correspond to the reality of the other, of oneself? Or is it more one's own idea? I think you will have to say it is more one's own idea. Now, let's ask, let's take a simple example, the person. That's always the question, what is the person? Isn't it? It's a question in many philosophies and so on. You have you're wearing a suit. You will say, this is my suit. When you say my suit, you're talking about two things. The possessor and the possessed object. You're the possessor. And the possessed object is your suit.
Subject and object of perception in a way, yes.
Yes, of just possession. When just this word my implies two things.
Yes.
Somebody who owns and something that is owned, isn't it? But we agree on that. Now you say, me, let's take myself as object. Helmut is my civil name. Me, Helmut, yes, I know who I am, of course. Here I am. Then you say, my body, isn't it? That's my body. No question, it's my body. We're talking about two things.
Two things again.
Me, Helmut, here he is, and his body. Now what do you see? Do you see his body or do you see him?
I see your body. I see your body.
Yes, you don't see me.
No.
I'm invisible.
You are behind your body. who are you in fact? I only see your body, and I presume that you are inside your body.
Good presumption.
Yes.
Okay. But you see my body, you don't see me.
No.
So me and my body are two different things.
Yes.
Okay. Then there's still one more thing, that is my mind. So I say, my mind is irritated today, is happy today, is sad today. Again, two things, me and my mind.
Yes.
Okay, so we have body and mind. This body we can perceive, mind I can perceive my own mind. And so what is me, this owner, where is he? If body is not me and the mind is not me, what is this me? But when I think of myself, I'm the owner of body and mind, and I have the impression that thanks to myself there is a body of Helmut, there is a mind of Helmut. This is the spontaneous idea I have, that I have been here forever, and thanks to me being here since endless times, now there is also my body and my mind. This is the general, very kind of subtle idea that is in every being. And that's completely wrong. That does not exist. So this idea of me as existing independent of my body and of my mind, that is a projection. That is a completely wrong projection. In fact, me, myself, am nothing but a name, but a concept on the basis of body or mind. Like when you look at me, you only perceive my body. And then comes the idea, there is the Helmut. More there is not to my identity, except this idea that is created.
Yes.
But this does not correspond at all to the way you perceive me or the way you would probably think about me. The reality is that I am completely dependent upon body and mind. There is nothing independent as Helmut existing in any way, independent of body or mind. But the way others perceive me or I perceive myself is exactly the opposite. As an independent Helmut, independent of mind and body. Now this does not exist. The reality is empty of such an identity. And that is the emptiness we are talking about.
All identities are empty of themselves.
You can formulate like this, yes.
So everything is interdependent.
Yes.
So emptiness, it is can be changed with the word interexistence or interdependence, in a way.
Emptiness is always referring to a lack of something, something not existing. It's a plain denial of something. And what is being denied? Independent existence is being denied. So there is nothing that exists independently. So everything is lacking independent existence. Therefore everything is empty of independent existence. Everything is dependent of something else. Yes, yes, yes. Yes. So the reality, it's a kind of space-time continuum, let's say like this. It is a kind of web with no limit. It is no place that I end myself and you begin. Is it a place when I am ending and you are beginning? Space, time and continuum are good words, but we leave out the most important fact, and that's mind. Without perceiving mind, no existence can be stated. So existence is always something that is stated in reference to a perceiving mind. And this is a kind of a description of reality that is completely unknown in traditional Western knowledge of our days. So this is what one has to train one's mind in an understanding of this dependence on the perceiving mind. And then one approaches the proper direction of what we call emptiness.
So the mind, it's the main field for the research when we are defining reality. It is
Yes.
that you said.
That's what we should do, yes.
Mhm.
But that's not what we are doing.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm very, I'm very not mindful now when I'm asking all this kind of questions, and I'm some complicated with concept, and I'm forgetting that those kind of questions are cutting the reality, in a way.
They are cutting our projections on reality. We are full of our own projections. Of course, towards other people. When we see a person, we immediately have a certain idea about the person, which is not the reality of the person. It's our idea. But we deal with the person according to our projection and think it's this or that. Even if you're looking at simple unanimated or living objects like tables and chairs and so on, we have a perception of them which does not correspond to their reality. On the simplest level, we see it as independent of its parts. We don't understand them as being dependent. And of course we don't understand that the image we have of the chair or the table, that's our image. That's not the actual reality of the table. And emptiness always refers to the non-existence of false projections. Whatever there are false projections in us, they do not exist in reality. And we are full of them.
So it is, in a way, a moment where all projections are coming back to the source, and we are not projecting anymore, and in that moment we have the experience of reality as pure knowledge, as non-dual knowledge. Is it something like that?
This state can be reached, but it's not something that's happening in us. It needs very precise preparations and very extensive development of the mind. And then something like you described can definitely happen. That is a state of perceiving reality free of all projections. But in our state of mind now, there is always a subtle projection. And that subtle projection is the basis for the arising of hatred, anger, jealousy, pride, and so on. And these factors of mind cause us to behave in harming manners. And these set the causes for all our troubles. So the root is this lack of knowledge, lack of wisdom, of correct perception. And so to cut all the root of suffering, one has to cut the root of these disturbing factors, and that root is this very subtle basic projection. And this can only be done by first learning about it very precisely from a qualified master, learning logic and gaining a precise intellectual understanding. Then one needs to develop concentration. On top of the concentration, the capacity to analyze within the concentrated, perfectly concentrated mind. And with such all the power of the mind collected, analyzing what in my perception is reality and what is just projection, finally leads to the point where the understanding of the actual reality becomes clearer and clearer, and then there's one point where it becomes free of concept. At that point, one has become an Arya being, which means a higher being. At that moment, the first level of faults of the mind leaves the mind forever, will never come back. From that moment on, there is only a way up to ultimate happiness and bliss. So that's a little bit the process.
And this is also called, in a way, enlightenment or something like that in our common daily language. And as I understand, Buddha always tried to speak about a kind of technique which leads to amplified our state of consciousness. That's all about amplifying our observing capacities.
It can be stated like this, yes. The process is to remove the obstacles that we have and to strengthen the positive potentialities. Like our mind has a number of very, very precious potentialities. Like this capacity of remembrance is a natural capacity. The capacity of analyzing, of understanding, the capacity of concentrations are all natural capacities. The loving kindness is a natural capacity, and the compassion. And increasing their power will step by step reduce the power of the negative ones. And at one point, the strengthened mind will be much more capable of analyzing these subtle aspects, and by that then gaining a point of such perfect perception of reality, free of all projections. And that's the beginning of the state that we call enlightenment or nirvana. Nirvana in general is the state when all of these disturbing factors like hatred and jealousy and desire have been completely eliminated out of the mind. And then there is still a further state which we call the state of a Buddha, which is a state of fully being awake, where even the most subtle traces left by these disturbing factors have been eliminated, which is much, much more difficult to gain than individual or personal so-called nirvana or personal enlightenment. So there are various ways.
I was wondering for our viewers, if can you recommend a practice, a daily practice, a simple practice for all of us in order to improve our life? Is it possible something like that? Because you are usually to ask for quick solutions.
Yes, I can.
Maybe it's a stupid question that I
we have to change the basic view towards our life, and that means we must understand the impermanent nature with an understanding of the continuity beyond this life. This is the only understanding that is capable of really transforming our attitude in a most positive and durable way. Everything else will be superficial. We can do many things, we can learn many things, we can do many practices. They will easily remain just a superficial activity, and this is not what we want. We want to have something really going into the depth, really changing from depth our situation. And there's only this one single understanding is so important. That is the continuity of mind beyond this life, and exactly knowing what continues and what does not. And by that, what will be of effect beyond this life, and then remembering how life just passes, goes away without us having any control over that. So for gaining this understanding, I can recommend one book that exists, I think exists also in Romanian language. It's a text by Gesche Rabten Rinpotsche describing the process of death very precisely. Read that, reflect on that, try to understand your present situation on the basis of these processes describing mind, interaction with body, and then keep in mind every morning this single day that I live today has one specific number in the number of days I have, and it cannot be repeated, it will not come back. Whatever I do wrong will be done wrong. I will have to purify that again and clean it up again. It cannot be just forgotten, and whatever I have used as a chance to develop understanding for the others, understanding for their difficulties, of overcoming my selfishness, as well as I can, will have been of true benefit. And let's say this was day number 10,000, tomorrow is day number 10,001, it's 10,002. If I lose 10,002, it will not come back. There will be 10,003 afterwards. Develop a mind that sees every situation, every moment as something unique that will not come back the same manner. And the only thing that counts in the situation is my mental state. Is it full of irritation, of arrogance, of pride? Then I've blown it. It's no good. Is it full of kindness, of understanding, of proper recognition of the situation, of the necessity of all involved, giving, if possible, some useful help? Then this moment has been used perfectly. This state of mind one must try to achieve, and that will truly change. And this one can do in the morning, one can do in the evening, one can try to remember what one has done during the day, and then count all the bad ones and all the good ones. In the beginning there will be hardly any good ones, there will be plenty of bad ones. So like this, from day to day, trying to improve one's view, one's efforts in behaving. This is the only really effective thing to strive for. And then it can be expanded on that basis. And there are endless powerful thoughts and practices. But without that basis, everything tends to remain as a theater play. You know, we are good actors.
Yes.
Deceiving ourselves.
In deceiving ourselves, we are the best. Thank you, Venerable Jampa. It was a pleasure being here. We have to conclude now, and allow me to express my gratitude towards Herald Publishing House and the Center Seeds for Happiness and the Compassionate Wisdom Association for the fact that we are here, you are here, and you share with us wisdom and compassion.
Thank you so much.